Hey Jeff, you ever tried to pick up a watermelon seed?
Not lately.
It's kind of a fun experience, isn't it?
I mean, I would think that would be hard.
It is tough. I mean, they're just like, you see it, you put your fingers on it, and boom, it shoots
Just
across
shoots,
the table.
yeah.
And it's
Slippery.
Yeah, slippery. So we're talking today about core values and how it's a little bit hard to actually grab hold of what my individual core values are. And they're a little bit like these watermelon seeds. So today we're going to jump into how to get a hold of those boogers.
Okay.
So, Jeff, we mentioned in the last video that we often have these unconscious processes that make it difficult for us to communicate both internally in our own dialogues and when we're sitting talking to our spouses
Right.
about trying to unlock what are the things that are most important to us. Can you help us maybe start working through the process of how to get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the important things you have to know to get there is to recognize that if something is not exactly in your consciousness, like you're not quite aware of it, there might be a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest reasons is that there's some feeling that's attached to a subject that tends to be overwhelming or painful or difficult in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the example we briefly talked about in the last video was, if I have a value and my partner has a different value and I bring it up, then it could cause a conflict, right? And so that conflict is laden with some kind of emotion. The emotion is not one that I want or my partner might want.
Mm-hmm.
And so we attempt, without even being aware of it, to set that aside and make it so it's all nice and happy, right?
Can I give you an example? 'Cause
Yes,
one's
please.
just totally come to
Sure.
my mind from my practice, and that is in working with a family who was grappling with this very topic and also grappling with how to make the monthly bills work because they had a decent income, but every month they seemed to be short and had been piling up some debt. As I was looking through all the money that they were spending, I recognized that there were lots of expenses around health and care and things that would go along with health. And they were talking about they really didn't know what their core values were or how to begin. And as I started saying, well, it appears that you really value the health of your family and the health of your kids. And she started talking about how they had a special needs child and and what I started picking up on was there was a lot of guilt about the amount of money that they were spending in that category. And so guilt had kind of covered up and buried the fact that one of the most important things in their family was taking care of their kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. And I think the point is taken that if you have a feeling, in this case, guilt, that drives you to not discuss the expenditure of money, then obviously that can be problematic at some point or another.
Mm-hmm.
Probably be better to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm feeling guilty about spending this. And I don't know if I should be feeling guilty about it, but I just thought it would be important to say something out loud and have us have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, and as we talked about it, it was kind of like, well, I know that we make good money, and we have friends and family members who are doing other things with their resources, and we're not able to participate in those things, and we feel kind of left out, or we feel like we haven't been able to keep up, and all of those things covered up the fact that they were actually doing some things to live within those values that they weren't even able to really articulate. But in doing so, it was creating stress and guilt and a little bit of shame, as we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, this is where we are, and this is the time in our life where we're going to focus on doing this. And so some other things have to wait.
Yeah, if you're able to say through, a series of conversations over time or with a professional like you, that I'm feeling this and it's revealing some conflict that I have inside myself or between us, then the next step can be maybe I really do value health. And if I really do value health, do I want to elevate that into a preferred spot in my mind and say, now I'm choosing to spend on health related things instead of choosing to spend on the vacation with the friends or whatever the other shiny object is out there. And now it becomes a meaningful thing that the couple can do together because they say, you know, what's really important to us is that we make sure our family's healthy. So we're going to spend our dollars on that.
Does family history, does individual family history come into play? I've already got you laughing.
Well, you know the answer to this already.
So obviously individual family history comes into play.
Right.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about how we were raised and how that sometimes, more often than not, embeds certain core values that we want to grab onto, and maybe some core values that we want to push away.
Yeah, it's a big subject, and we have other videos covering it. So definitely go and look at our other videos covering it. But I think, you know, how you grow up has a really big impact on what you do every day. It's part of what determines your behavior in the present. None of us want to think that. Right? We want to think that we're completely independent right now, and something that happened to us 20 years ago doesn't have any impact on us. You know, you hear people say the past is in the past. Well, it's not. And the truth is, you know, how you saw your parents or your family deal with money has an influence on how you think of it. And obviously your partner had a different experience with money. And so when the two of you get together, there could be a mismatch or a good match, depending on, you know, how the families arranged money.
Right. I see a lot of times when young couples get together, there's all this fresh energy of we're now our own couple, and we've got this absolute clean slate that we're going to start with, and we're just going to do what works for us, and we're not going to look back. You know, we've thrown the rearview mirror out of the car, and it just doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. The one thing I see in that kind of a scenario that's kind of common is that you'll do sort of the opposite of what your parents did. But what's interesting about that is that your parents are still defining what you did.
Right.
What you chose now is being defined by what they did. Now, that might be a good thing, or it might not. I mean, you might just create the reciprocal of that problem. So now you have the opposite kind of problem. But it's better to be having a conversation with your partner about that so that you're not, you know, creating a replication of problems or the opposite of the problems, which is still problematic.
So just to wrap up, I would like for us to maybe give a couple of pointers. You know, maybe these are bullet points or whatever, but a couple of decent pointers on how to initiate and sustain a conversation about what's important to me and what's important to you for a couple. And I want to stress, this is not a young person's exercise. I've got couples in their 50s and 60s that are doing this and wishing they'd done it earlier, but are still massively benefiting from going through and realigning at whatever point they're at. So this is an everybody exercise.
Yeah, anywhere along the relational continuum.
Yes.
Right. You know, I think giving your partner the benefit of the doubt when you're having these conversations is really important. Assuming that they have good intentions and then they're not trying to cause some kind of conflict with you is really important. I think the thing we say after every video is really important, which is to be curious. It's extremely, extremely helpful to know that your partner is listening carefully to you and wants to know what you're thinking and feeling, even if it's directly opposite to what they think and feel. Being heard and understood and seen is an important part of being connected. So I would start with those things.
Right.
Listen carefully to your partner. Be curious. Don't just dismiss what they have to say. And imagine that it's important, even if you don't understand the importance of it.
Yeah, and I would put in there, I think storytelling is really important. You know, growing up, I probably heard 2,000 or 3,000 stories from family.
Sure.
But I don't remember 2,000 to 3,000 stories.
Sure.
I remember 20 or 50 on a good day.
Yeah.
You know, and they come to me at different times. But it's those core stories, that was a big memory, this was a big memory. Those are really fertile places to go. Those are really important places to go tell that story to your spouse. Listen to yourself tell it, have your spouse listen to you, ask some questions about it, and say, what is it about that memory what is it about that story that makes it stick to you?
Yeah.
Because in there, you're going to find something that either supports or pushes you away from something that you get some clarity on.
It really does help to ask open-ended questions. Tell me, for instance, tell me about how money was handled in your childhood. I mean, it seems like it's a super simple question, but if you listen carefully, if you let your partner talk and you just listen, they will begin to tell you all kinds of interesting things.
That's right.
And that will reveal sort of how they think and feel about money.
Yeah, and I would say even non-financial questions. Tell me 2 or 3 of your favorite memories growing up.
Yeah.
That will tell you something about moments that really stuck to you, about how your character was developed, and things that you might want to replicate in your family going forward. So, conversations, curiosity.
Yeah.
Don't run away from the things that you're battling. Look at them and try to look at them with fresh eyes and see if maybe right there in front of you is something that you actually really value that's just not being packaged correctly.
Yeah, for sure.
So stick with us. We're going to keep going.
If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll be able to get some more content to you just like this one.
And always, you can go to relational-media.com.
And as always, stay curious.